an innovation strategist and creative entrepreneur. He is the president of Interactive Design Association and also the creative director at Architempo. Presenting to you, Mr. Alok Nandi. Welcome, sir.
So good afternoon, everyone. Kochi, are you there? Good afternoon. So we had already a dense afternoon with a series of dense thoughts by the panel, which was led by Pradyumna Vyas, and then we had this emotional moment. This moment, and I would like to congratulate the students, is very important because it allows to make the point that we should not confuse design and art, and I'll come back on that one. So my talk this afternoon is Design for Experience, and I'll spend a few minutes with you thinking about our practice as designers. At the end of this talk, we'll have a 3-minute video which will kind of recap and share the complexity of the field in which we are. Is there any pointer? Or shall I? Yep, let's do a quick test. It was said in the previous panel the importance of storytelling. And one of the obsession I have is the interrelationships between storytelling and design. And the point I'm making is that any activity of design begins by a story. It's the expression of the intent. So keep that as a kind of thread which will keep this presentation building up and up. So story is fundamental, and design is a way to make that story tangible. The conversation here will be intertwining 3 ways of looking at design. Design practice. We have design practitioner in the room. How are we going to make sure that we reflect on our practice? Design parcours. Many of us have been active as designers. How are we making sure that we are enriching our journey as designer? And design projection, how are we projecting ourselves into design activities? Just to get a sense, how many designers do we have in the room? Which is a great, great number in the room. So talking to designers is different than talking to non-designers. And the challenge we have as designers is that we need to talk to non-designers. So keep in mind that this talk will be about trying to articulate this tension between talking about design. So many of us now stress the importance of design. Design is hot. Kochi Design Week is big. And so I'll just do a 1-minute parcours where I'm coming from. I jumped into the design world by doing a book. So I was doing book design and exhibition design on an Indian filmmaker, Satyajit Ray. So Ray was a storyteller, and I was designing something on his parcours, on his journey. And the other activity which brought me to design is working for the publishing company of Tintin. My job at Tintin was to make stories which were on books, bringing on screen. How do we navigate in books? How do we navigate on screens? And that raises a number of questions. And that leads into some of the insights I'll be sharing with. After my years in publishing, in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I was into augmented reality installations for museums, doing research and technology with storytelling and space and place. So I launched a series of framework which was called Transfiction, transportation into fictional places. I'll skip that, and the last part, which is also infusing my activities, is I'm professor in a culinary school. So I'm teaching design to chefs and to hospitality manager. What is the future of hotel? What is the future of food systems? So I'm sharing this just for you to get a sense of where I'm talking from. I'm based in Brussels, Belgium. I work in France. You can hear from my English that I'm not English walla, French walla, okay? So I'll jump into different notions, and the first one is this one. It was said by an anthropologist, Claude Lévi-Strauss, cooking is a language through which society unconsciously reveals its structure. Now, if you take Kerala and the importance of food and cooking in Kerala, it will give you a notion of what is Kerala culture through its food. If you take Bengal, if you take Gujarat, if you take any part of India, food is so important. Now let's replace the word cooking by design. Design is a language through which society unconsciously reveals its structure. And this will be my working assumption in this talk. For those of you who think that design was invented 150 years ago, thanks to industrial revolution, please reboot yourself. Design was invented much long ago. Just go back to what we were doing 5,000 years ago in India, what we were doing 5,000 years ago in China. We were busy with design activities. And I think we need to bring back all these notions that we were busy with. As it was presented, I'm the president of IxDA, Interaction Design Association. It's a bottom-up organization. And we are present in India with number of chapters. We are 120,000 designers, and Kochi and Kerala has got its chapter. So I'm quickly sharing this, and then we'll move into the content. IxDA.org, and you'll find tons of resources about that. We have a website, of course. We have a World Interaction Design Day, which takes place in different parts of the world, distributed set of activities. And we have an annual conference which will be in Milano next year, 2020. This is just for you to know that there are many conversations going on. And some of the conversations are connected to ethics. Ethics was mentioned. Some conversations are connected to plasticity or flexibility, the role of the designer, how designers are talking to leadership, design and policy making. All these are taking place in that kind of conferences where you have education, design education, student design charrette, awards, interaction conferences. This is just to give you a sense of so many conferences going on in the planet. What we are doing also, Saturday is Design Open here in Kochi in partnership with Kochi Design Week. We did a first day in Hyderabad on October 13, and we're doing another one Saturday where we are looking at 3 streams: design and disruption, design with people and culture, which was evoked, and design with responsibility, where the question of ethics comes back, the questions of ecology comes back, the questions of economy comes back. So this is taking place Saturday. And so the point I'm trying to make here is many conversations are focusing on the how. And in this kind of environments, we are also looking into the why. And my talk will be focusing on trying to frame the why. Why are we designing what we are designing, for whom? So one of the hot words is UX and UI. How many UX designers do we have in the room? Okay. Now, how many UI designers we have in the room? Okay. So the next talk will be expanding on UX and UI. My take here is UX and UI, which are buzzwords, which are sexy words, need to be reframed also, because the industry, the education systems are also getting into some confusion. Pradyumna, Vyas, and all the panelists were talking about the role of design in education, and we know that we have this conversation which is design with a big D and design with a small d. And design of the first order, design of the second order, design of the third order, and design of the fourth order. What does it mean? Are we designing for the surface? Are we designing objects? Are we designing environments? Are we designing systems? Architects have been busy with that for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. All these questions have been articulated in different systems with different types of languages. And today, design is taking some elements of languages and putting that into questions connected to designing objects, designing systems, interacting with objects. That was mentioned as the end of the last panel, interacting with subjects. And the core difference we are seeing nowadays with design is that we need more and more strong conceptual tools, and we need more and more strong coding tools. Because design is getting also, I mentioned UX and UI, it's getting its components which are automated. What does it mean? What can be automated? Where is the place of human being in design systems? How are we looking at the future of work? So we need to articulate this. And I'll share with you one framework that we are using as interaction designers. So we have been talking a lot about design practice. The previous panel was looking at design studies and was mentioning some elements connected to design exploration. And the challenge with us designers is we can be anywhere or everywhere. If we look at design and business, we are here. Commercial design, how are we working with business? How are we working with society? If we look at the previous panel, they were talking at design studies. If we are looking at the future of design, design critique, what can design be in the next 5, 10 years, we'd be talking about design exploration. This is a way to frame our thinking about design. So, design practice, we need people who have the sense of judgment, who have developed taste, competence, who know how to speak to client, who understand what is the process of creating stuff, so who are context-driven, the word context was mentioned, who can have the ability to have synthetic thinking, and this is something which is taught in design schools. This is how designers can add value. And design studies allow us to share knowledge with peers, to explain, to understand systems, to articulate cumulative knowledge. We need all these kind of different types of grasping knowledge. And this leads to the third part, design exploration. Design exploration is about provoking, about what if, how might we. Now, some of you might argue that design practice is also about how might we. Yes, of course. But the essence has been pushed into design exploration. So each of us as designers, we need to navigate between these three spaces. We need to make sure that we push the boundaries. We reinvent the frameworks. And this gives you the kind of complete picture. Now, why am I showing this to you? Because since this morning you are having so many conversations about design. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow we'll have more conversations about design. And when we are talking to policymakers, when we are talking to business people, we need to make sure that we are talking about design in a grounded way. And this is one way. It's raising the question of objectivity versus subjectivity. Experimentation versus analogy. And if we look at our education systems, be it in France, be it in India, be it in different parts of the world, this last 100 years, we have seen a kind of split. Engineering school versus design school. And what we see in 2020 is that maybe we need to move to this. We need to have people who are able to cope both with objectivity and subjectivity, both with experimentation and analogy. And storytelling is a tool which might help you for that. John Maeda, he's now the Chief Experience Officer of Publicis Sapient. He was working before for MIT. He came a few years ago with these classical design disciplines, architecture, communication, landscape, interior design, and what is happening with the effect of digital on your left side. The device you have in your pocket gets access to a system where things are changing every second. How do we design when we know that the element we have in our pocket, the smartphone, is only a touch point which leads towards some organic development of stuff which are happening there, which also have been designed, and where UX and UI are fundamentally necessary. How are we going to make sure that without interaction, there is no service? And that is important. The stuff you have in your pocket is rendering a service. That service is meaningful because you can interact with that object and all the system which is behind. Now, if there is no proposition, there is no usage. What was happening before Facebook? Some modalities of social relationship. What happened with Facebook? Another modality of social relationship. Good and bad, yes, we can debate about that. But the proposition of Facebook resulted in specific usages and behaviors which impact the society. And there comes back the question of ethics. There comes back the questions of responsibility. Imagine, is there any Facebook designer in the room? What is the impact of stuff you have designed? And this is a question which we need to tackle. So, interaction plus service are time-bounded. Proposition and usage are place-bounded. The architects in the room are specialists of place. Some architects are specialists of time. We designers, interaction designers, we pretend that we are specialists of time. Even if we don't say that explicitly, we need to understand the nature of tempo, and the way I articulate is this one. Often we talk about space and time. Not often we talk about tempo and place. Place is space with memory. Tempo is time with energy. How are we making sure that in our design activities, we articulate there these elements, these components, and this leads to my early point about narrative. Narrative is the ability to share knowledge. And what is design? Design, to my point of view, and we can debate about that, is the expression of intent. Now, if we talk about intent, and I have different frameworks, I don't know if I'll have time because something bizarre happened with the watch. Cholta hai? Okay, we continue. So, this is a framework we use for interaction setups in museums. What is happening if you are designing in a museum where people have to interact with the devices, the environment, the places, where you are using sensors and stuff like that? We are giving attention to intuition, to familiarity, to tangibility. We are trying to make sure that what we are reducing in our design system can be understood. So we are designing for people who are 18 years old, but we are assuming they are 12 years old because they need to quickly catch. We are looking at these dimensions: tangible, organized, familiar, intuitive. But what is the most important amongst all these is when we design stuff, we need to make sure that there is trust which is built between what we are designing and what people are going to use for. If you take all these keywords and you put that in a policy-making framework designed for policies, you'll see that similar questions are arising. These are provocations. Let's spend 10 seconds on that. So the framework I showed was looking at immersion, social interaction, and embodied participation. This is what we would use in an exhibition design. If I change my framework and I look at service design, it would be customer experience, business value, organizational capability. If I change again this framework and I move from one way of looking to another way of looking, you see that there are similarities, there are patterns. So what I'm trying to express is that nowadays we need to re-articulate how we learn about physical systems, cognitive systems, and social systems, because this is impacting the way we are designing. And in education, we are facilitating the knowledge acquisition of people who will be active in 5 to 10 years. This is a challenge. How are they gonna master materiality, industrial design? How are they gonna master computational design? How are they gonna master social activities? And that is the challenge we are seeing in the coming months and years. Design appetite is immense in India. Last year I was in a conference and one of the ministers said that India is a country where we have such a design appetite that we'll need to have so many thousand schools, so many million designers, so many. Now, in order to have design appetite fed, we need an ecosystem. Kerala needs an ecosystem. That was the topic of the previous panel. In order to have an ecosystem, we need conditions. So let me go back. Yep. So there comes, I mentioned design appetite. We need design provocation. Without design provocation, we'll continue doing the same boring stuff. And we really need to wake up and change systems. In order to have interesting provocations, we need design critique. And Pradyumna, you are mentioning the importance of critical thinking. It is so fundamental in so many places, and especially in conferences like this one and others. We need to make sure that we don't copy and paste the 5 steps of, again, the same design thinking, blah, blah. Design is about raising questions. Design is about trying to understand intent connected to impact and projecting ourselves. The big problem we have in this articulation is this one. There are so many contextual incidents happening when you are designing that what we think will be an impact is not the impact we intended. And the job of the designer is to have that plasticity, that flexibility, in order to make sure that when you have many incidents, you still keep focus on having the right expression of the intent and making sure that the impact you are envisioning is being realized. And there we are getting into design process, design making. So we should stop telling design thinking. We should talk about design thinking and design making. And that is where this articulation is important. Change making. This is so hot word. Transformation, digital transformation. Open any newspaper, go on any website, go to all the corporate voila. Am I right? Maybe you'll touch upon that in the next keynote. He doesn't dare. He changed his slides. He's taking out the word transformation. I'm just kidding. So change making can't make any sense if there is no sense making. And design is about sense making. When we are talking about that plasticity, we are talking about this. When we are talking about ethics, we are talking about this. When we are talking about responsibility, it's this. Which means that, and I think I'll skip this because what is fundamental is this one. How are we building capabilities for making sure that our designers, our engineers, our policymakers come with point of view which are grounded? And I'll go back. In order to make sure that these kind of words are meaningful. Immersion, augmented reality, 3D, engagement, all these words, they are so important. But how are we making sure that they are framed in the right way? That there is design literacy and digital literacy which allows us to explore this question in a meaningful way. Another set of words which we are lost in confusion, prediction versus anticipation. Any ML, AI specialist in the room? ML, machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence. You know, for me, okay, many of you okay, 98% are from India here. So if I replace the word AI by khichdi, would that make sense? You know khichdi, the preparation of rice with dal? AI today is a perfect khichdi. You put everything and anything and that's AI. We need to be more critical about that. ML, machine learning, again, khichdi. So designers need to understand what is AI, how they can act and help engineers to design interesting stuff. That is about making sure that we don't confuse prediction and anticipation. Designers are there to anticipate possibles. ML and AI are there to ingest prediction-based systems and provide things which have been provided through the system. Keep in mind, everybody knows GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Software experts. So many artificial intelligence are based on garbage in, garbage out. What is the role of the designer? Making sure that we minimize the quantity of garbage. That would be my position about design. And I hope that I might be contradicted by the next keynote speaker, but we really need to stop the bullshit. And we need to reflect on what can design. Automation and autonomy. Another set of keywords where we are garbage in and garbage out. Let's reflect, let's critique. Let's make sure that policymakers don't get lost in confusion land and come with some decisions which might put us in the garbage itself. Remember, when we give our identity, we are providing content to the system, and we might be taken by that. So, to close this keynote, abstraction is important. As designers, we need to master abstraction. And India is the place where abstraction is mastered in fascinating ways. I'll go back 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. The invention of the digit 0 is amongst other coming from India. Why? Because we had steam in temple. Science, technology, mathematics, art were coexisting in spaces of conversation. And without 0, we would not have 1 and 0, and we would not have computer. 0 has been designed, amongst others in India. We had 3, 4 streams on the planet. So we need to keep that in mind. Mastering abstraction allows to better re-question modalities of transaction. Transactions are not only financial transaction, we have emotional transaction, we have social transaction, we have narrative transaction, we have navigational transaction. We need to take that into account. And that allows me to reflect on what does it mean interaction. Interaction design is not only UX and UI. Interaction design is the ability to think about conditions for you to interact with stuff, to interact with objects, to interact with people, and to work on the design of platforms. That is the challenge which will keep us busy for the next 10, 15, 20 years. How do we design meaningful platforms where meaningful interaction can take place? And India is so much empowered to have thinkers and makers who can master abstraction and modalities of transaction in order to think the next. Because in a nutshell, what is design? Design is thinking and making what doesn't yet not exist. That would be for me the essence of design. In order to make sure that we think and we make things which yet do not exist, we need to understand the history and the theory of how things are made. And that is the challenge we'll be facing now, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So India needs design theorists, India needs design historians, India needs design practitioners. If we don't have these components, we won't have a strong design ecosystem. And to make my point very clear, India needs to stop copy and pasting what is happening in the West. India has got so many knowledge spaces that it needs to re-articulate that in meaningful ways for 2020, 2030, 2040. And it's not by, have you seen the traffic jams? Bangalore, average speed 18.4 kilometer per hour. Mumbai, average speed 18.3 kilometer per hour. You imagine, if we run, we'll be more quick than cars. That is fundamentally an issue. Urban design in India, I don't know if there are urban designers, but what is urban design? It's designing a platform. And we completely, in the West, destroyed the city as a platform. India is busy destroying the city as a platform. So we need to reboot that, and this would be my ending provocation. Is Revati Kander the Chief Design Officer of Titan? Maybe not. You know, she designs watches. Many of you have got the Apple watches. Some of you know maybe these Indian-made watches, make in India, the Ish watch. Because in India, time is an art. So my conference keynote was at 3-ish, but it began at 4:20-ish. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference.